see that. I'm actually curious how you're doing. Let me tell. I'm going to tell a story. Really, the story is kind of the last 4 years of my life. And since we don't have 4 years for me to speak, I'm going to have to cut some parts of it out. But I'm going to do my best. But it actually was about 4 years ago today. Had a really nice weekend. It was took my daughters to the daddy-daughter dance where we live. And the next night we went to a charity event. The guy that ran the charity was like giving away all of his expensive wine at the end. Gave us like so much wine. And the next day was a Super Bowl, so it was Super Bowl 4 years ago. And we had a party with family at the house, and my wife said to me, you know, our life is so great and just so happy and things are just so wonderful. And the next day was Monday. My doctor called me. So I had some pain in my left limb, and it didn't go away, and my left limb was swollen. I thought it was from taking the kids to Disney World, and I was getting older. I was in my early 40s, and I didn't stretch before I pushed the double stroller around and running to the next ride to get there before it starts. Beauty and the Beast. Uphill, both ways, in the snow. Not really the snow, but my doctor called me with the results, and he said, listen, I need you to go down and see this other doctor in Miami. We live in West Palm Beach. And I was like, okay, I go see the guy. Kind of weird because you're my doctor. And he said, is your wife, can you bring your wife? I was like, well, my wife she's working. I mean, she's a teacher. She's at school. But why do I need to bring my wife? And he's like, well, listen, they're gonna tell you a bunch of things, and you know, you might not hear them, and might kind of go over your head, and it's just better if you have like a spouse or someone you can go with. I was like, okay, kind of strange. I mean, I knew I had a thing in my left limb that was my calf that was a little bigger. I thought maybe I had like a blood clot. So he goes, this is a doctor. Go down. You got a 1:30. I called my wife. I Googled the doctor, and it said he was an oncologist. And maybe you guys are smarter than me, but I didn't know what an oncologist was. So I had to like Google, what is an oncologist? And it said it's a doctor of cancer. I was like, motherfucker, can't believe it. Cancer, wow. So anyways, that's your life can change quickly. We all know that. We all know that, you know, things happen. We've had friends, family members. You know, a lot of things can happen quickly, and of course, I always live my life that, you know, you got to live your life fully, try and make the most out of every day, and I already lived that way. I was like, I had like a thing, and it said, lives his life to the fullest. That was long before I had cancer. So, got my wife, and we went down to Miami, and, you know, they do a biopsy, and next thing you know, I got cancer, and I didn't even know what an oncologist was, so I always stayed positive. And, you know, one of the things that I did is I got advice from other people dealing with cancer survivors, and that was very helpful to me. It's kind of like, you know, if you need relationship advice, you should probably not take your relationship advice from someone who's in a bad relationship. But someone who's beat cancer, I was like, well, that could be a good thing. And so there's a lot of moments that, you know, I learned from things about being patient, just about taking things 1 minute at a time, 1 week at one day at a time, one appointment at a time, one exam at a time, the results, and there's a lot that goes into it. And I truly believe that the positive energy and good karma, and, you know, they're just, I've always given back to the community, and it was like, all right, well, if I know that staying positive and, you know, not being depressed over this is what's going to maybe help my chances, then I'm going to be the happiest guy out there. And I'm actually now, so 4 years into the story, I'll get back to that a little bit. So found out I had a tumor. It's called a sarcoma in my left calf, wrapped around my fibula. And immediately, you know, I did chemo, and then I did surgery, and they're actually able to take the tumor out, take the fibula, which is not, you know, the one up your ankle. It's not a weight-bearing bone, and so I was able to lose that, and, you know, and a couple of weeks later, up and walking, and actually it took about 7 weeks until I could walk again, and I fully recovered And I was, it's interesting because it's always the other guy until it's you. But, it's always, what are you doing? I was always like, we're having a big ass party when I'm done here. Big ass party. I'm going on a big trip. I'm doing big things. So, whether I was kidding myself or I was in denial, I was trying to, as long as God willing I could get there, I was going to do all those things. And so I threw a party after about I did 8 rounds of chemo. 4 before and then 8 after. So it was like 12 rounds of chemo, a surgery, a 10-hour surgery, and by the end of the year, the cancer was gone. There was a chance it could come back, but I was throwing that party, and I was taking those trips, and so I did that, and got about a year later, and unfortunately, it did come back, and I beat it before. I beat it. I'll try and beat it again. I mean, statistically, it could come back. It might not. I try not to read too much on the internet about really its chances. I know my wife, lovely wife in the back, she read a little more than me. She read everything. I didn't read anything, and she didn't tell me anything. And we were both scared shitless, and we never told each other that until we finally did at some point. But so it came back. I did chemo again. This time they gave me the strongest chemo that was possible, and I had to check into the hospital in Miami for inpatient chemo for like 5-day stretches, 4 times, where I was like connected the whole time. And it was good thing about Miami is that I was able to get Cuban food from Little Havana, great stuff from this area, from the design district. I'm just a funny guy that the amount of food I basically was like, I look on the bright side, but you really have got some great food down here. And so every day, either my brother or my wife brought me the best food. I didn't get like one food, but I couldn't get them to not come visit me. So we did that. Then I had another surgery, and this was interesting that I go into this surgery, and the doctor, beforehand he says, listen, we could take your limb instead of doing the surgery, or we could do the surgery. And I was like, well, what would you do if it was you? And he said, I would do the surgery. I mean, this is one of the best surgeons in the country, people flying from all over the world, and he's aggressive, and he's good. Become a good friend over the 4 years. And he said, but listen, if I get in there, with something to do with an artery, if I just can't get the tumor and do it, then, when you wake up, you're not going to have a limb. And I said, all right, let's do it. And then they actually brought me the paperwork to sign, like, you might not have a leg when you wake up. And I actually, I had some good drugs and went to sleep, but my wife and brother and my sister-in-law were out in the hospital. It was before COVID. And they were waiting and waiting and waiting. And I think after like a 12 or 13-hour surgery, they knew I was okay, and they knew that. But I eventually woke up and looked down and saw my leg, and I was like, whew. I wasn't prepared at that point. I mean, it was always a possibility. It's just a possibility with, the type of tumor I had. And I was off. That was, January of just before COVID. So, like, it's been 4 years. So I've been dealing with this for what I call BC and then AC, before COVID, after COVID. So, thank you. One laugh. Not a comedian up here. But thank you, my one friend. So, I had skipped my friend's 40th birthday party. I'm like a party planner just for fun. People know, they go on a trip, they call me. You need a limo, people call me. They just know I know all this stuff because, I just randomly do. I read a lot on the internet. And so my friend, I had to cancel the party because I was doing chemo inpatient. In fact, I was helping run this 40th birthday for my friend in New Orleans from the hospital room. I was like calling the restaurants and like, hey, can you do a group of 20 tonight? And they're like, well, most of the places don't answer their phone in New Orleans, but I did run the party. I made shirts and everything, but I said as soon as I'm available, we're going back to New Orleans. I still had I had to cancel my flight and stuff. So 2 weeks after surgery, I'm back in New Orleans. It's late February of 2020, and just an awesome time, and we end up just having a great time. I'm like, I'm 2 weeks out of surgery. I'm like literally 16 days after that 13-hour surgery, I'm partying in New Orleans out till 4 a.m. Like, we were just killing it. And So I did meet up with that surgeon again, and so I went to the doctor, and I said, all right, well, I got through my surgery, had my follow-up. I was like, so what are you going to do? What's the next chemo? What's going on? What are we going to do this time? Because I had I felt like I should have an aggressive doctor. Like, if I'm going to fight this thing, I want to fight it. If I'm going to go down swinging. And he was like, no, you're good. I'm like, what do you mean I'm good? I've already done 12 rounds. He's like, no, like right now we just got to see what happens. So I went to my surgeon, who's different than the guy who gives you the chemo, and I said, yeah, my doctor doesn't think I should do any more chemo. What do you think? And he's a surgeon, he's not the chemo doctor, but very bright guy. He's like, and we were like, do you think I should get a second opinion? So he said, yeah, you should get a second opinion. So we fly to Houston, my wife and I, maybe just a week later from that New Orleans trip, and this is now, March 7th. We know the world's about to shut down, although we didn't know at the time, from COVID. 2 weeks later, 1 week later. So we get up to Houston to MD Anderson, and we meet with the best guy there, the best doctor in sarcomas, and we say, hey, this guy, he knows the doctor. He trained him, actually used to work there for UM, and we're like, so do you think, is there anything more aggressive you can do? What can you do? He goes, no, we're not. He's right. You shouldn't do anything, because when it comes back, you need, your body's going to be able to, do it then. And I was like, what do you mean it's going to come back? He was like, well, it's a 99.9% chance it's going to come back. I was like, well, my doctor didn't tell me that. And so it's interesting when you think about doctors. There's like bedside manner. They come up and they look in your eyes, and they're not very nice to you. And like some people are just better, and if they tell you bad news, they tell you in a way. I've had doctors that told me bad news, and I coached them on to feel better about telling me the bad news. That's the kind of guy I am. And I was like, this guy just was like straight up like, yeah, no, he goes, it's 99.9%. In fact, it's going to come back faster. That's what this cancer does. And I think my doctor in Miami is just a different kind of doctor. He probably knew that, but just wasn't that negative about it. And so this guy says to me, and I don't forget this quote because it was meaningful and shitty, but he said, if you've got things on your bucket list, you should start checking them off. My wife and I, we just got out of there. I went there to see if there was something he could do, and he was like, no, there's nothing anyone can do. He goes, and it really would be 100%, but I got to leave some fraction in there for just the one-off. And I'm like, I'm pretty good at math, but 1/100th, it's like a 1 in a lot of thousand. So that was pretty bad, and my wife and I went back. We drank some really good bourbon in the Houston airport, and yeah, it was just like, wow. And so the one time it took 15 months to reoccur, and he said it would happen in less time and probably keep starting and splitting. So the timing of COVID really wasn't good for, if you're going to go out and, you live your last hurrah. COVID didn't, it was challenging, but we did take like a 2-month driving trip. We drove to New York, stayed in the Carolinas, and even with COVID, I couldn't be my biggest focus worrying about COVID. So, but, we didn't fly, we drove, and we took the kids, and they were homeschooled. And sure enough, that doctor in Houston was right. And he was right about the timing. I think it only took 9 more months, and the tumor came back for the 3rd time. And this time it was in my shin bone, and it was in the same area, but it was pretty evident that I was going to lose my limb. And, I had a couple years to think about it, 2.5 years. I had a lot of good times in those 2.5 years. And, I was like, this time I was ready. I wasn't ready when it was going to be just, sorry, we had to take it. And the probability wasn't that high this time, but it turned out it was going to happen. So it's been about 10 months since I lost my limb, and went through physical therapy, and I can walk pretty good. I can even want to be able to break dance a little. I'm always giving back, and these doctors and the people, the healthcare workers that have helped me, they've just been amazing. People that are in the oncology industry, it's a if you're a nurse, you don't have to do oncology. You can do whatever you want. If you're a doctor, also, you don't. And so those people, it's like a calling to them. They're almost like, to me, like a religious person. The way I look at a priest is like, or like someone that deals with people in hospice. Like, that's really a calling for people. And so they've just been, amazing, and I've met a lot of great people over the years. So, yeah, once again, I said, you know what? I'm going to do physical therapy. I'm going to stay positive, and that was that was so in March, I lost my limb 10 months ago. I'm able to walk. I got through all that. I went from crutches to a cane, and about 2 weeks ago, I got rid of the cane. I took my daughter to the fair this last weekend. I walked like 2 miles, no cane. This kind of pavement too. It's not all paved, but I did it, and she was happy. My wife was happier because she didn't have to take her. And there's just been a lot of things that I've done to stay positive. I'm a positive person. People are like, "Oh, so are you seeing someone?" I'm like, "I'm married." No, like a therapist. I'm like, "Oh no, I never even thought about that." But not that there's anything wrong with that. And they're like, "Yeah, I'm like medicine for so you're happy." I'm like, "No, I don't need anything." And I just think that what's kept me going really has just been staying positive. I'm a lucky guy. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm an uncle. I'm a nephew. I guess we all have a lot of things if we have a big enough family. And I got a lot of people checking on me, a lot of friends, and a lot of support. I did, unfortunately, a month after the amputation, they found out that the cancer had actually spread. And it had spread to my lung. Lung, because there was one tumor in my lung, which I have still. And found out that like a month after the amputation. But I didn't, get an amputation to save my life. I got an amputation because I had no other choice. Like, the tumor was there, and it was like, there really was just nothing they could do. And so I've been on some new medicine, and it's controlling the tumor. They said there was like 20 areas of concern. So I've had nights, and my wife, we've had nights where we really thought that it could be the end, just in the last year. And, my state's in order, and I prepared for it, and everything is a bonus. Everyone here lives and does today and tomorrow, and is a bonus. I mean, that's what life is a bonus. And I think you don't have to make the most of every single day, but try and make the most out of as many days as you can, because there's a lot of fun to have. I just want to have more fun, but staying positive. And so I had 19 spots. I got on this medicine. They checked me 2 months later, where there was 20 spots. All 19 were gone, and the one is basically stayed the same. And the medicine that I'm on, it turned my eyebrows white. But other than that, it's really not a big deal. I was already bald, by the way, for those of you who are keeping score. Yes, 1 for the bald guys. But I'm tall, so most people can't see that I'm bald, in my mind. I'm keeping a good fight. I've got a lot to live for. And just recently I started, I met a friend of a friend who has the same thing as me. And so I'm kind of coaching him, and I was coached. I'm like a self-proclaimed coach. It's kind of like when there's no best man, and you're like, I'm the best man. I just became his coach, and he's a great guy, and got a young child like I did, and I'm keeping him positive. And I told him about tonight, and I said, talking to you these last 2 months has inspired me to get up. By the way, I've never spoke publicly about my cancer. I really can't call myself a cancer survivor, but I'm just living with cancer. I'm still rocking it. We went to Hawaii last year. I went on crutches. We're going back this year. Love going to New Orleans. Love to travel. Take the kids as many places as I can. I've been blessed with success in business, and I can afford to do that. But spend as much money as you can afford to, because life is short. And really, that's what I wanted to say. If I can inspire people, to know it's difficult. I'd say it's been just as hard on my family, just as hard on my wife. And if I had a choice of me, my wife, or my kids, I would step up and take it. You'd walk through fire for your family. So, it's a lot on the whole family, on the extended family, but we've had great times. Just tons of trips. I went to the Super Bowl last year. I didn't really have a bucket list because I've done so much in my life. I've traveled. It's like, you have a bucket list? I'm like, no, I've done everything. If I wanted to do it, I would have done it. But when you really think about it, there's some things you might want to additionally do, and you can do. And I can just keep doing the same things I've already been doing. But that's it. I appreciate you letting me share. You got a great platform here, and stay positive. Have fun.